Hello and welcome to the Cybersecurity Insider episode 24. Today we have a special guest, Gordon Coyle. He is an insurance guy. I need to bring him to the picture. Okay, here you are. I thought you're lost for a second.
I'm here.
Okay, Gordon. So it's about you. Tell us what do you do? Why you're
Sure.
here? Go ahead.
So I own an insurance agency called the Coyle Group, and we only focus on business owners, and we work with businesses of all sizes, small, medium, and large, from small public companies to large private companies, and across all spectrums of industries, from technology, financial services, retail, wholesale, distribution, contractors. Our book of business is very varied. And for the purposes of today's conversation, of course, we're going to talk about cyber insurance, which is a big thing that we're doing and have been doing for the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years. We started off slow in the business, like a lot of insurance brokers, and we sold it when we were asked about it. Now we're a big proponent around cyber insurance, the need for it, the need for understanding what the coverage is, what it does, how it can help a business in the event of a breach, an attack, a hack, or some sort of an event, because these can be costly events. Are you still there? You're like, oh, did we miss you? All
No,
right.
I just
You gave me the full screen for a minute.
yes, I give you the full screen because you're speaking. So
Okay.
I want to give the due respect to you. So that's
Thank
why
you.
maybe I want to get my coffee. I don't know, whatever. Close the window, do something, go to the bathroom. You know.
So, in a nutshell, we do all forms of business insurance, but cyber is a big piece of what we do for new clients as well as existing clients. The firm I own, I'm a third generation owner. It was a company started by my grandfather and his brother in 1929, and I've been in the business for 40 years.
Okay. Excellent intro. So here you see cyber and security. Why now? What's so important? And I mean, maybe the answer is not needed, but you know, give us your spiel.
So why is cyber insurance needed now? Cyber insurance is the only form of coverage that is going to respond to a breach, hack, attack, or some other cyber event where a business has suffered some sort of a loss related to their digital assets. If a company believes that their data is priceless, then it makes sense to insure that data. And I don't mean for a dollar limit like property insurance as an example. But the most common threat that we see today is ransomware. Ransomware and other threats, the incidence of these threats is increasing year over year in an exponential fashion. And the cost of these events have become progressively more and more expensive. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, and it depends on what expert you're talking to, but every sector of our economy faces a threat from cyber, cyber risk. And the only way to insure it is with cyber insurance. I believe that every business, no matter how big or how small, needs to purchase cyber insurance if they have data that's stored in a digital fashion. And I don't know of
Well,
any company today that doesn't run a business in a digital fashion. And I'm not talking about an e-commerce company or having online assets. I'm talking about doing banking digitally, having your customer information in a digital format, using QuickBooks, any sort of form of business, unless you are conducting business 100% on paper and pencil, you need cyber insurance, in my opinion.
and if you're using paper, probably you're using fax.
Could be. I don't quite remember what a fax machine is, but it does sound familiar.
Yes, it does. Yes. People sometimes says, "Oh, especially the federal government, like the IRS, when you need to do something with them, they only transact using fax. So you need to change something. Also, some insurance companies, by the way, like for my car insurance, no, Nissan, and in order to get the title back or something, they require you to send a fax, and I didn't have a choice, and I had to get a fax. So I said, okay, should I get, besides my internet connection, should I get like a regular fax here, or should I get digital fax, meaning you can send to a fax and then you get it by email, or you can log in anywhere and then you can um, see the fax. And then I have a choice. I said, okay, you need to send us a fax, otherwise we can process whatever request. Okay, we, I thought we are progressing to some extent, but I guess we are not. I don't know if it's better or not. I can't really determine that, but this is what's going on. So
Yep.
yeah, if you are not using fax, maybe you are lucky. But okay, so this is actually leads us to the next question: types of cybersecurity insurances. So give us. I know because for my business, and we spoke about this like I think 2 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I asked Gordon, okay, I'm looking for error and omissions. What else should I look? Said, but what else do you have? I said, well, I have business owners and liability, and it says error and omissions. And then you said, you should make sure to get cybersecurity insurance. I said, really? Why? What should I have? And me as a cybersecurity person, I'm asking, why do we need cybersecurity insurance? I said, oh, make sure you get it. Don't you want to get it through me? Fine. You want to go to somebody else, do it, but just get it. So, to that, why do we need what are the types of cybersecurity insurances?
So there's predominantly two ways or methods of buying cyber insurance. It can be added as an endorsement to a business owner's policy for small companies that have a couple of employees, or you can buy a standalone cyber insurance policy. I don't recommend endorsing it to your business owner's policy, frequently called a BOP policy. I just don't think that it's broad enough, and usually the limits of coverage are very low, somewhere in the area of $50,000, $100,000. Um, I think it's totally insufficient. So the main way of buying cyber insurance is through a standalone cyber insurance policy. For the most part, across the industry, there may be 15 markets or players in the business that sell cyber insurance. Maybe there's more. We work with probably 14 or 15 of them. There's brand name companies like Travelers and Chubb and CNA that have cyber forms, but then there's more modern facilities that are known as managing general agencies that have produced unique cyber insurance policy forms and protective services and underwriting services, such as Evolve, Coalition, Corvus, Access, just to name a few. Those policy forms, broadly speaking, are all very similar. So there's not different types of cybersecurity insurance policies. They're really, as a standalone product, one type of policy that covers first party and third party risks within cyber and cyber crime. The difference that you're going to see between these policies is coverage limits, coverage triggers, terms and conditions, which gets into the real nitty gritty that I'm sure that your viewers and listeners don't want to hear about. But I think that broadly speaking, standalone cyber insurance is the policies are fairly similar from one company to the next.
Okay, so let's say for the standard, I don't say standard business because everybody is different. They think that they're different, but in terms of the hacker's perspective, they looking for the data. So you are not special. Any event, any uh, business is not different from another because they want the data, regardless of what you do. And specifically, let's say healthcare, they have a lot of confidential information, but other companies also small business, and hackers know that those small businesses already were breached. I don't know if you're familiar with that statistic, but they said if you are breached in the past 6 months, it's likely that you're going to breach in the next 6 months. And this is because hackers remember that that specific business was vulnerable to specific vulnerabilities, and however they failed to to remediate those vulnerabilities. And so, what like the average business owner should look in terms of cyber insurance?
I think that the main question is, you know, that is going around in the mind of a business owner that hasn't purchased cyber insurance. The first question is why do I need it? And as we talked about earlier, if you've got data, it's susceptible to being stolen, corrupted, locked down in a ransomware attack. Any number of things can happen. If you believe your data is precious in running your business, then you need cyber insurance. If you don't believe that it's precious and that you can replicate it easily and you don't need it, then maybe you don't need cyber insurance. I've been kind of challenged by some prospects who say, well, I've got a full backup. But Yago, you probably know as well as I do that backups are very infrequently tested. So you don't know what the integrity of those backups are. A new strategy being deployed by hackers is they'll inflict ransomware on a victim, and the victim will say, go ahead, I'm not going to pay your ransom because I have a full backup. I can restore my system. It's tested. They're 100% confident that their backups are good. The hacker says, fine. I'm just going to then expose all this data to the public, and then you'll face third-party lawsuits from your customers or your vendors or whoever you collect data from. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. They're going to get you one way or another. The question is how are you going to pay that ransom? How are you going to restore your data? How are you going to pay for third-party lawsuits? How are you going to pay for potentially damaged or destroyed hardware that's bricked in the process of an attack? These are all things that are covered by a cyber policy. And I guess the bottom line is that if a cyber insurance premium for a small business is $1,500 a year, are you willing to put potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars at risk, maybe millions of dollars at risk in lawsuits and other costs, or paying a ransom of, let's say, $30,000? Are you willing to put all that at risk for not paying $1,500 for a premium? That's up to you as the business owner. Now that's on a small business. A large company, their premiums could be $40,000 or $50,000 a year or higher. If the premiums are that high, you've got to imagine that the risks are substantially greater. If you take an employer with 300 employees and they're put out of work for 3 or 4 or 5 days as they try to remediate a ransomware attack, what is the cost of that lost productivity? It's probably way greater than the $40,000 premium. On top of that, you've got to pay the ransom. On top of that, you've got to pay forensics to figure out what went wrong and clean the data and make sure it's not going to explode on you again. So, from your perspective and what you do every day, you help protect your customers' data. Why? Because the data is valuable. So insurance is just a mechanism of funding the recuperation, remediation, and recovery from an attack.
Right, and I get this because backups are actually, I saw today an email piece that came from Israel talking about an hospital that was breached, and they said that the hackers got into 7 million patients' information records, and they were able actually to encrypt. They had multiple backups, and they were able, those hackers, to encrypt this data. So this is kind of where and they fail also to do segmentation. There's other issues. So when a person tells you, the customer tells you, oh yeah, well, I have a backup, great. And to find out if a backup is really good and what to do with that, you need to do like risk assessment in order to understand where's your risk level. So with that, I want to switch to how insurance companies determine how much to charge and how they determine the risk. And I remember in our conversation said, well, they just want to know the risk. So how do they determine the risk? What they as a business owner, what they need to do in order to make sure that the risk is low and get a good policy and good premiums?
That's a good question. So what we're seeing today is insurance companies up until about, I would say 18 months ago, they would quote and issue a cyber insurance policy for $1 million based on some very, very preliminary information, number of employees, annual sales, and basically a checkbox that you did patching, you did backups, you had a firewall, not very sophisticated technical questions or issues around security postures. Today, that's all changed. Insurance companies want to know, are you deploying multi-factor authentication? Do you have air-gapped backups? How do you secure your data? What kind of training do your employees have when it comes to phishing exercises? I'm trying to think of other questions off the top of my head, but what we're seeing is that underwriting has become more complex, not just for the first-time buyer of cyber insurance, but for every renewal policy as well. I've got a couple of accounts that are on my desk right now that are renewing, and we bought the policy, or the client bought the policy based on those basic 8 questions I talked about a minute ago. Now they're facing a 4-page application that's got 30 questions on it. And the client's going, why do I have to answer so many questions? And I'm like, look, I get it. It's a pain in the butt to answer all these questions. But cyber insurers across the country have just been hammered in the last 18 months with claims, especially ransomware claims, which can be very, very expensive, as you know. So they want to make sure that the posture of the client matches their underwriting profile, and that they're not giving a policy or selling a policy to a client that doesn't take security in a serious way. Another thing that some insurance companies do is they do a perimeter search. They want to find out and look for gaps in security from an external point of view in a client or a prospective client's network. Are there open ports? Are there software vulnerabilities that are not patched? Are there
When you say that, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So those insurance companies will come on site, or they're gonna send a third party to do
no,
those assessments. They're
doing it all
gonna
remotely. These are all remote opportunities.
all remote checks. Okay, so
Yeah.
they're gonna run port scanning, and they're gonna see if you have like low hanging fruit
Right.
before they approve the policy.
Before they
And
even quote the policy.
before
So,
even the quote the policy.
yeah,
Okay,
so it becomes
that's
part of the
important.
quoting process.
I understand. Okay. So not all insurance companies will do that. Some will do that just to make sure that the risk that they will buy, to some extent, I can say
Right.
it, is low enough, and they won't suffer any kind of they're going to need to pay for their customer for the policy.
Right.
So this is interesting. Okay, so let's continue. And the next item,
Let
unless
me
you
just,
want to
if
add
I could interrupt you for a
another,
second.
yes, sure, sure.
So some clients will see this as being intrusive, and they'll say, why is this insurance company looking at my network and my security? You know, it would be the same if you wanted to buy workers' compensation insurance. If it was a large firm, let's say in manufacturing, the insurance company is going to send an inspector, which we call a loss control engineer or a risk control safety specialist, to the manufacturing plant to see that everything is operating safely, that there aren't employees hanging from ladders unprotected, and they've got guards on machines, and that they're wearing personal protective equipment. Those are the basics for something like workers' comp. We know what those risks are. Cyber is a fairly new type of insurance, so insurance companies and underwriters are still feeling their way. And when they're presented with different threats and new threats every day, they've got to find a way to manage that and price it accordingly. So these scans are just one way to do that.
Okay, this is all makes sense, because my background, I'm coming from a country where security it's major. In Israel, the state of Israel is surrounded by enemies inside and outside, and we came to the point where we can't trust our internal, meaning you don't have, in the old days you had like perimeter, you had a border, And if somebody come to the checkpoint, you can, exactly like Checkpoint Company, this is how they made the name, Checkpoint Firewalls.
Mhm.
It's no longer exists. The information is all over the place. And people are talking about zero trust because you can't trust. So you need to verify and then
Mhm.
you can trust. But on any transaction, you need to verify and then you can trust it. You can't trust and then verify. It's exactly the opposite. First, you need to verify, then trust.
Right.
So with that, as a business owner, right? What do I need to have like before I come to ask for a policy? So I know some of them will, and I know I've been going through that. They ask me a few questions. Oh, do you sign with each customer on a contract and some limitations and so forth? I said, yes, of course, I need to sign a contract with this customer. Otherwise, I can't provide services. So they ask all these questions. And my follow-up question, so let's say you got the bridge. Okay, I got the insurance. I answered all the questions. Yes, I have all those policies. I have everything. I'm fine. Just get me that policy and let's move on to the next crisis. And so let's say you got breached, you got the ransomware, and you come to the insurance company. Hey guys, you know, this is my policy. Pay me $1 million or whatever, 500. I don't know, whatever the number, $50,000. So the insurance company would say, okay, you want some money? Show us you did whatever you did. Are they going to ask him, do you have those policies? Show me the policies that you have. Show me the procedure. Show me the contract, all those terms that you said initially when you signed up for our policy. Do you really have them? Do you really have a firewall? Do you have antivirus solution? Because this is one of the questions that ask me. Of course, can you go without? I mean, I'm not using antivirus solution. This is like old school. Um, but do you have all those in place? And then after we verify you have all those things, we're going to give you that funds that you're looking to get. Is that
Well,
the process or something
yeah,
else?
no, let me take a step back and kind of where I think that the claim process happens and what we've seen is client gets, hammered with a ransomware attack. They call me, holy cow, or maybe the language is a little bit more salty than holy cow, but
Yeah.
I've got a problem. I can't get into my network. I've been locked out. All my data is encrypted. I've had a ransomware attack. So the first thing we do is we call the carrier, and the insurance company has typically a 1-800 hotline that's manned 24/7, 365. And on the other end of the phone is somebody called a breach coach. Now, everybody's going to have a different name, but that's generally what we call them. And this is the person that's going to walk you through the process of remediating a breach. They're not going to look for opportunities to decline coverage. They want to get on this thing right away because every day that goes by is a more expensive claim. So if they can get a claim settled quickly, they're going to do that. That's the first priority of most insurance companies.
This is good to know. This is
Yeah,
actually good to know that they would like to come and help you, the business owner or any business, to recover quickly as possible from a breach because it's their interest to make sure that you are online right away.
right. Because one
This
of
is a
the
good
key
point.
coverage parts in a cyber insurance policy is something called business interruption. So if you have a ransomware event and you're down for 2 days versus 21 days, let's say, as an example, and we've seen this. Um, I worked with a prospect who hadn't purchased cyber insurance yet, and they suffered a ransomware attack, and they were out of business for 21 days.
Ooh.
Um, you can imagine, and then ended up paying a $35,000 ransom. So not a
Oh,
big
so they pay the ransom. They were done 21 days because this is actually a good story for us and for the viewers. So they were down 21 days and then they paid $30,000 to get back the data. They paid the ransom.
They paid the ransom, but they didn't pay it right away because they thought that they could get themselves out of the jam because they didn't understand what a ransomware attack was. They figured, oh,
Uh-huh.
my backups are fine.
Until they
Backups are,
discovered that the backup also encrypted.
well, yeah, because the backup was on site. They had on-site servers. The backup wasn't air gapped, so they got whacked. So they were trying to work with their IT company, which was not that well equipped to handle this event. and they were negotiating with the hackers back and forth. The funny thing was the hackers, they asked the hackers, and you got to look at this from the perspective that hacking today is a business, and they run it as a
Yes.
business enterprise with call centers, customer service support.
Yes.
Here's how
Oh,
you get your
yes.
Bitcoin. This is how you pay us. It's crazy. Um, and they said, "How did you get into our network?" And they're like, "We're not going to tell you." But get this, we're not going to tell you, but I would recommend that you hire a new managed service provider because your IT firm sucks. But that's how this is what, hacking has become in the world today.
It's a
Um,
business. Yes.
it's a business.
Actually, my wife kept telling me, she said, why are you on the defender side? You should be an attacker. You're probably going to make more money than defending your customers. What are you doing? Just change, you're still going to do cyber, but you're going to do it as offensive or, I don't know, hacking instead of protecting. And I'm not in that idea, but I understand. I hear you.
Yeah. Well, and hacking today, there are ransomware platforms that operate as an SaaS company, a software as a service company. You can
Yes.
rent and lease the
It's a SaaS.
software that,
It's
right,
SaaS service, yes. So
right.
you can say which malware you want, and you give them the list, and they push it, and you're done. And then you
Right.
have a profit sharing and whatever how they do it. Yes, it's a business,
It's a
total
business.
business.
So if we
Yes,
face it as a business that's easy to make a lot of money at, we start to
right,
understand why hackers are so motivated. If they send out millions of emails a day in a phishing scheme, they only need one or two to make a ton of money. Because
right,
if the ransom is $25,000, that's nice. If the ransom demand is $250,000, that's even nicer. So for them, it's just a numbers game. It's going to Vegas and knowing how to crack the code on the slot machines. But let's go back to the original story. So the client's down for 21 days.
right.
I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what kind of business you operate. You are going to suffer a significant loss of revenue if you cannot operate for 21 days. If you
Follow
can't,
up question, injection.
sure,
21 days the business was down. Did the business owner told you how much they lost, because like hard dollars and soft dollars, like what was the cost for being down 21 days? How much they
they were
cost
they
them?
were a little bashful about even admitting that they were down 21 days. They didn't want to give up what it cost them. But I think the revenue of the client was in the $15 million ballpark. So I'm just grabbing my calculator here. Let's just do a little simple math. 15 million divided by, let's just even call it 365 days times 15 days, times 21 days is $863,000. Just guessing numbers here. We're not talking
Right,
about $8,000. We're talking about a significant portion of a client's revenue. 21 days represents about a full month of work. What company, what business, what client of yours or mine can afford to slice off 1/12 of their revenue and hand it over to a hacker, to a third party that they're not getting any value from other than the data that they already own back?
right,
That's the risk. That's what we're talking about.
right. But this is not only the revenue they lost, because they had now to put money out of their pockets to pay for the remediation. So it cost them another $30,000 to pay the ransom, and then it
Right.
cost them, I don't know, thousands of dollars, 20, $50,000 just to clean up that mess. So the question is, did they do anything besides? So let me ask you another question. Did they get the insurance eventually, or they didn't get the insurance?
They're in the process of trying to get the insurance.
Oh,
And
because they were breached now, the insurance company not exactly happy with that, so they're gonna
oh yeah,
deny them.
that's a huge red flag. And when you go to the insurance marketplace and now you're going to try to buy cyber insurance after this is the proverbial cow got out of the barn and you want to close the door now scenario.
Right.
Insurance companies are going to ask a lot of questions, and rightly so. You
Yes.
were a victim, and you were a victim at your own hand. You didn't
Right.
understand the threats and the risks that you face. Now, I'm not pointing the finger at
Maybe they knew
third
about the
party.
risk, but they decided to ignore it. It's also a possibility.
Could be, or they didn't
Or they didn't want to
really.
pay. They said, I had a case, so sorry to interrupt you, but I had a customer and they said, I said, listen, you rather save $30,000 or 50 or 200, whatever number that you're gonna pay me to secure your network, but you rather pay this $1 million to close all this mess. What's going on here? It's like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, you know, in a lot of business owners' minds, and a lot of anybody's minds, people's minds, is that if they've not experienced something, it doesn't exist. It doesn't happen.
Right.
So I believe that for a lot of business owners, they don't believe they're ever going to get hacked. They don't ever believe that a criminal element is ever going to be interested in their business. Now, years ago, when we thought of cyber attacks, we thought only of the theft or corruption of data, the theft of data that then could be resold on the dark web, which whether it was personal information, PCI information, or personal health information, that
Right.
was somewhat valuable. But
Right.
the game changed with ransomware because hackers had to go from selling things for pennies on the dollar and going through a lot of work to sell that crap on the black market on the dark web to ransomware, which was instant jackpot city. Thousands of dollars, like boom, in your pocket. There wasn't any work to it other than collecting the Bitcoin and being on your way to the next victim.
Right.
So I want to go back to the client that we're just talking about, the prospect that
Right.
we were talking about. So
Right.
it's more difficult now to buy cyber insurance. You're going to buy more. It's going to be surcharged. There's no doubt about that, and rightly so. Um, you present a higher risk, and you need to clean up your act and have everything as bulletproof as possible, or you're not going to even get a quote. Or you'll get a quote, but then once they do underwriting, they're not going to sell you the policy. So, having all of the elements of security have to be in place. The one element that we didn't talk about, that I didn't even bring up, that happens in these situations in the cost structure is reputational damages. Let's take another example as a law firm. A law firm gets hacked and their clients find out that private data has been stolen or corrupted. What are their clients going to think? I can't trust this law firm with my private information, and they lose
Right.
clients.
Right.
Um, and some cyber insurance policies include a sublimit for reputational damages. So if you suffer a loss of income due to a breach or an event, and you lose clients because of it, the insurance policy will pay. So for some industries, that's a really important coverage part. So for professionals like lawyers, accountants,
Right.
people like that.
Right. Yeah, it's a and it's good that you brought this the reputational damage because people don't think about it. They just think, okay, how much is this going to cost me? The policy. If I need to pay the ransom, okay, I'll pay the ransom, whatever the numbers are. If I'm going to lose some revenue and I'm going to need to put money out of the pocket, okay. But then reputational damage is something that you cannot even quantify it because on how much you're gonna you don't know how many customers you're gonna lose, but also future business you're gonna lose because people now gonna talk about you. Say, hey, you see this company, they got breach. Okay, I guess we should go. But really, in this environment these days, nobody is safe under the sun.
That's right.
And I had discussions this week and previously with two vendors, and both of them said, oh, we have one of them was identity management, and the other one was actually remote connectivity by wireless LTE. And they said, yeah, you send everything is on the cloud, and our cloud is highly secured. I said, oh wow, really? Your cloud is highly secured? Okay. Do you think that if the FBI was breached, it's good enough? Do you think, what about Kaseya, Microsoft, FireEye? All these companies will breach, and you're going to tell me that you are better than anybody else? Come on, please, give me a break. And I
Right.
said, you know what, guys? can I get this service or whatever without the cloud? I don't need the cloud. Don't give me the cloud. I rather no, you can see the graphs and the usage, and you say, no, 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 no. I don't want to see anything on the cloud. No, 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 no cloud. I can manage it from here on prem. I rather have that than having anything on the cloud. Thank you for the cloud. I don't need that. So interesting.
I think a lot of it stems from the big unknowns in the client's mind. They want to believe that they know everything to some degree, um, but they don't know as much as what you know about cybersecurity. They don't know as much as I know about cybersecurity insurance. They believe that they know more than everybody, and that's kind of what makes a good business owner a good business owner: self-confidence and a broad knowledge base. But the best business owners, in my mind, are the ones that admit what they don't know. They know what they don't know. And that's why they
Yes.
rely on outside experts to guide them and provide
Right.
support in their blind spots. And that's a big piece of what we have to overcome when we're selling a service or insurance or whatever it is to prospective clients.
Here's the story. We did a risk assessment for a company that built a software for the jewelry business, and the results of the risk assessment were not exactly good enough. Let's just put it this way. And they were hosted on a hosting company, and I'm trying to keep it without names. And they were breached, that company, the hosting company. Now, what we told them in the risk assessment, they have two virtual machines, and doing the risk assessment, we found that we can see all the neighbors of that hosting company, meaning all the customers and the hosting company system, like the email system, the management system. So I told the customer, I can see anything here beside you. There's other tenants here that I can reach out without them knowing, without the company, the hosting company, they can't see it. Okay. So what do you recommend? I said, okay, if you want to stay with them, see if they can give you private cloud. I said, okay, let's do that. So they did private cloud. Guess what happened? Day after they finished with the private cloud migration, can you guess what happened?
I know what the punchline is going to be.
The hosting company got breached with a ransomware. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. So the CTO said, Igal, you saved us so much, so much. Like I can't be so grateful for what you did for us because you got it right here. And it's like simple stuff to do, and you can be in a different place. You don't need to do a lot in order to be secured enough or improve your security postures. Just the low hanging fruit, you can come and collect them and make sure that they're not going to fall on the ground for anybody to come and pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, when selecting an insurance, what are the caveats? What does a business owner or business should look? Okay, the caps, the coverage, all those little nitty gritty that they need to know that can make a difference. Actually, what
Yeah,
should they look for?
I think the first thing is that business owners should be working with a cybersecurity insurance expert. If you're working with a generalist and you're a small business owner, small retailer, couple of employees, not a big deal. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of cyber insurance companies that'll write you a policy. It'll be $1,500, $1,200 a year. If you've got a more sophisticated business, you're doing millions of dollars of revenue, you've got multiple employees, you need to be working with an expert in this field, not just a generalist who may sell a couple of cyber policies a year. Because that expert is going to help you distill and understand what's in the policy and what's not in the policy. And on top of that, what services come with the policy that some other policies don't provide. There's a lot of insurance companies and vendors that provide post-sale value-added services like um, employee phishing training, uh, external scans of your network, all kinds of different things. And everyone is different, but you need to have that expert be able to say, company A is better than company B. Company C is a little bit more expensive, but they're better than both of these companies. So it really comes down to the expert advice that you're getting when you're making a purchase. That's what I think you should be looking at.
It's exactly perfect. When I wrote in my book, I said, um, people go to, so let's say I took the example of an expert, which a general doctor, right, will know about the eye, let's say. So you need an eye doctor, but he can tell you, oh, okay, I'll refer you to an expert, and that expert will handle something within his expertise. And I had a conversation this week on Monday with a potential customer. And he said, we're using this company, again, without names. They are actually residing in New Jersey, and they provide MSP services, managed services provider, IT services. And he said, forget it. I'm not going to use them because first, I want to put all my eggs in one place. The second is that they are not expert in cybersecurity. And I want to hire people who are know cybersecurity. They are not IT people. IT people are general doctors, and cybersecurity experts are the eye doctor, if you will. So, and I'm sure people will ask, okay, all those policies, how much they cost? What should expect? Like, if you can give us like a ballpark, what that will look like for each policy, kind
That's
of.
really a difficult one to answer. But like I said, I think you're looking at minimum premiums for very small companies around the $1,200 to $1,500 ballpark premium per year. Just kind of thinking about some of the deals I'm currently working on. Um, larger firm, a little bit larger firms, but still small businesses. I think you can expect to pay $2,500 to $5,500 a year for cyber insurance, and then upwards from there. The big thing is what limits are you going to buy? A lot of companies are just buying $1 million limit policies, and that may be insufficient to what they really need. One of the things that we haven't talked about is cyber crime. And most cyber policies limit cyber crime, which is also known as social engineering or fraudulent funds transfer, to $250,000. There's some firms, let's say any kind of a company, or let's look at a law firm that does a lot of real estate. They're doing a lot of wire transfers. They may have exposure well beyond that $250,000 number. So then you have to customize that policy or add a separate crime policy to their portfolio of coverages to make sure that they've got protection. But the premiums are really hard to just kind of ballpark and say this is what it is. And again, the other thing is that $1 million limit may be sufficient. It may be totally fine for a small company, but a $100 million sales company probably should be buying $5 to $10 million a year. The other thing that we're seeing, and I actually had a call on yesterday, were customers who are mandating higher limits of cyber insurance. 2 years ago, most vendor relationships didn't have a requirement for cyber insurance. You had to give them a certificate of insurance that you had general liability, workers' compensation, auto liability, and that would be sufficient. Today, a lot of customers, especially if there's handling of any sort of third-party data, they're mandating cyber insurance. A year ago, probably $1 million limit was sufficient. Now we're seeing a lot of vendor requirements ask for $5 million of cyber insurance, and it may be appropriate. There's different ways to establish what limits of insurance you should have. It could be from benchmarking, peer group review, kind of just off the top of my head ideas around what others in that particular industry are buying. But the component of that $5 million cyber demand is that it's getting harder and harder to get. A lot of cyber insurance companies are limiting their exposure to $2 or $3 million, depending on the risk. Some insurance companies will put up a $5 million limit. But what we're seeing is that a lot of these higher limit requests have to be accommodated through a primary cyber policy and an excess cyber policy. So maybe the primary policy provides $3 million of protection, and the excess provides $2 million, and combined you've got your $5 million. But
You
that's the
actually answered
dynamic
the
of the market.
right. You actually answered the question. If you can get multiple policies, let's say cybersecurity insurance from different companies, so then you can. So let's say, as you said, you need 5 million, and they're limiting, so you get 3 and 2, 2 and 3, 1, 1 and 4, whatever. But okay,
Right.
so you have a primary holder, and then you have another one that will take all the remainder of that insurance policy. Okay,
Right.
that's a great idea. Okay, all right.
What's
So,
important, though, to understand is when you do multiple policies to achieve a full limit of $5 or $10 million, that the successive policies over the primary are coordinated. You're not buying $1 million policy over here and $1 million policy over here. They can't be independently purchased, because then you have two primary policies, and both of those policies likely will have something called another insurance condition, and they'll both fight each other to say, no, you're primary, no, you're primary. And at the time of a claim, the last thing you want to have are two insurance companies fighting it out over who's supposed to pay the claim. So that's why you have to arrange this in a primary and excess fashion. And all of the underwriters, excuse me, who are involved are cognizant and aware of what layer they are in a tower of coverage. You could have
so what?
5 policies making
So
up $20
what?
million.
So when you buy insurance policy, cybersecurity insurance policy, you need to buy them the primary and the secondaries all at the same time to make sure that the one is the primary knows that he's going to primary. All the secondaries will know that there's a secondary or third party. They will know that this is the old, because when you mentioned earlier, and I'm assuming this is the case, they're going to say, oh, you are the primary, because if they are the primary, they're going to need to pay first
Right,
for a claim. That's why it's important, because you didn't say that, and I think this is the case. Who's going to pay first for the claim,
right.
right?
And that's why
This
it
is the
makes sense to work with one broker who knows what they're doing.
right, because they can coordinate those efforts to make sure that they are coming in the right way.
Right.
Okay, perfect. And so we need some story time here. I know we talked about. Why are you laughing?
I'm just thinking story time. I'm like, yeah, a lot of insurance stories are going to put you to sleep. So, like a bedtime
No, it's
story.
well. We're gonna inject some questions and answers, so it's not gonna. I mean, I don't want to put anybody to sleep now. It's not a bedtime anyway. I mean, my kids, I can put them to bedtime without stories. Slap in the face. So what are they? Give me some stories. Real stuff. Oh, we got breached. So give us some colors here.
So, so I had a call, on my voicemail that came in from a client at 3 o'clock in the morning. They were a West Coast company, so time difference was a little bit of a factor. Uh, but they were seeing some odd activity in their credit card processing system, and they suspected that they had been breached and that their facilitation of credit card payments was being manipulated by hackers. Uh, Obviously, their hair is on fire at 3 o'clock in the morning. And fortunately, after they called me and got my voicemail, obviously, I'm not working at 3 a.m. East Coast time, they remembered that they had an insurance policy with a phone number on it. They opened the policy. There's the claims hotline. They called. The next morning, when I got the voicemail, I called the client. They were obviously still awake and working. And they're like, and I'm not, and this is not made up. They said, thank God you sold us this policy, because they were worried sick that they were going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in the course of this event. And being able to speak to somebody immediately where they could help remediate the loss gave them a lot of comfort. And that's what I tell people. When you buy cyber insurance, you're buying two things, and I often characterize them as two buckets. The first bucket is a bucket of resources, expertise at the other end of the phone that's going to tell you what you need to do right now to stop the threat and to start to recover. The second bucket is a bucket of money. And that money is there to help you pay for all those experts, all those resources. If you're a major company, you're probably going to need something as obscure as a public relations company to help you manage the public relations crisis that can take place around an event like this. If you're a small company, it's going to be about paying accountants, forensic experts, digital cybersecurity experts like you, Michael, outside experts, lawyers, to satisfy and comply with local and federal laws and requirements. These are all things that the average business owner never really thinks about because they don't have to. But when the shit hits the fan, they don't know what to do. So they're getting that bucket of expertise and then the second bucket of money to help pay for those experts and pay for business interruption, stolen money, damaged hardware, damaged software, and everything else that can be covered under a cyber policy. You're still on mute.
Any other stories? Give us a more juicy, something more like, tension and drama and something. You don't have drama. I mean, this is, yeah, they called me. I was sleeping. Okay. Who cares? If you don't remember anything now, it's okay, because we're going to do maybe another session if you like.
Okay. So rather than just a claim story of somebody's hair on fire,
okay.
Let's take another one. So working on an international global company, fairly sophisticated, their European coverage does not cover the US, which is very common. They don't cover claims that arise or are litigated in the US because the cost of litigation in the United States is so much higher than everywhere else in the world. So as we're putting together their insurance program, which included like all coverage parts, and cyber was one of them, we submitted the cyber quote to an insurance company that did an external scan and came back and identified some really scary exposures. I sent it to the client and I said, I don't know if you're aware of these things, but these have to be looked into. He escalated it to their internal IT department, who escalated it to their external security department, and identified that the weaknesses that we identified were in fact true, that they didn't know existed. So it may not be a sexy, thrilling kind of a story, but it was just an interesting component of the beginning of a conversation, of a relationship with a new client, and how we added value by not even selling them anything. It was really about this scan turned up what could be very potentially hazardous exposures to their IT infrastructure. And they were grateful that we identified it because they fixed it.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is a big company, and I'm assuming that they have enough budget, maybe, and they need to assign more budget or higher budget now for IT and specifically to cyber, especially small businesses, but also big business and government. But in this case, where you gave them the value and said, okay, here's what you need to do, this is actually helps them. Well, there's another thing, how they didn't know about it. Like they don't have and so they have external security people. How come they didn't scan outside for vulnerabilities? Like this is like, it's basic. It's basic. It's not, you don't need to do more. And I mean, this is also goes with the recent vulnerability with Java, with Apache log4j. People don't know the inventory that they have. They don't know the systems that they're using. They don't know anything. And do we have that? Or so one customer has a Salesforce, and 10 days after I knew about this and about this vulnerability, and I notified the customer, I mean his team, and they got busy with other things, but they forgot to answer me. But apparently Salesforce are using log4j and are also vulnerable. This is about the thing. What do you do with companies that you are dependent on them? Your business is dependent on them. And now you are just, because if my system, I was owning the system, here's my rack. I see the system, I can see the systems, I can patch them at any time. And then I can have a third party to verify that all those vulnerabilities are closed. With a SaaS solution like Salesforce, I don't have any control about it. I can't do anything about it. This is really, and the owner said, well, I figured it out that we won't be able to do anything because it's been controlled by them. So I think it's very bothered me. I don't know if it bothers other people if they give the time to think about it, but really, this is really bothers me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And actually, it bothered me when everybody was talking, oh, the cloud, everything going to cloud. I get, and this is like a story from like 15 years ago when the cloud started to be, growing. So I got an email from my friend in Israel said, oh, soon we won't need any IT people like you because the cloud is coming. They're going to eat you up. I said, oh, wow, let me see what this cloud means. And I started asking myself questions. Where is the data? Will be stored. Simple question. You say cloud. Where's the cloud? Can be here, can be in Japan, can be in China even. And I don't know where's the data. Yeah, the data is on the cloud. And people don't understand because they don't understand where's the data. They can't even understand what all these terms meaning and what is the data at all. It's like, what is that? They can't even explain this to themselves. So, I mean, this is really bothering.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I think we are coming to a closing. So again, thank you for watching the Cybersecurity Insider episode 24 with Gordon Coyle, our insurance expert, cybersecurity insurance expert, I should say. And thank you for watching. Thank you for giving us some good thoughts when we go and shop for insurance. Hope they come to you. And of course, you can like and subscribe to our channel. There's icons. I don't know, always it's the right of the left. I don't know where exactly. So make sure to like and subscribe our channel. And we'll come with more episode. Actually, we are now preparing this is for my car because I took the car. A lot to talk with you guys about vulnerabilities, exploits, ransomware, all this. Oh, by the way, Microsoft has a huge vulnerability with active. We're gonna talk. I'm not gonna say anything. Just you to know that a lot has been going on in the cybersecurity industry in terms of vulnerabilities, exposures. Oh, by the way, the defense ministry of which country? Belgian defense ministry networks breach through Log4j vulnerability. Impressive. Okay, so this is just to give you a little bit of taste for our next episode. You look a little bit amused. I don't know why. Is it because of me or because whatever I'm saying or because of the topic? I don't know. Are you seeing some another video over there that you're so amused? Well, what's
Just
going on
watching
there?
you.
Oh, okay. Okay, hopefully, guys, you enjoyed from this episode. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Hopefully, maybe this week or next. Thank you again. And we are closing. Thank you, Gordon.
Thank
See you
you.
next time. Take care.
Great. I know.
Bye.